Hi everybody, Mr. Dorothy here. We are live again for Art for Kids Live and Adults too. I'm going to give people a second to hop on and then we will get started for today. It has been about a week or so since we've been together. My school has been on spring break, so I took a little break for us to make sure that all of my kids could be here. So we are gonna pick up, and I didn't realize until I actually, with the quarantine, forgot that spring break was happening. So we're going to do a little review of what we were talking about last time. I'm just going to show some things. So if you maybe weren't here for the last video, you can still get some things done and then maybe finish up after you watch the video. But last time we looked at, and I shared in that post about an artist named Clare Youngs, C-L-A-R-E Youngs, and she does these really cool illustrations of different textures and patterns of animals, and creates these collages of those different patterns using different materials. And so last time we created some using some simple meat trays and pressing into the meat trays, or we used some cardboard to we used some patterns. The lighting is lovely most of the time. To create these awesome different textures. So we just used a pencil pressing into the meat tray to create like a little rubber stamp. I used 2 pieces of cardboard to create a stamp. We used all sorts of colored pencils to just create textures. Hi Miles, hi Evelyn. We used cut paper and just glued it on top of another color. We used some marker. We used some oil pastel to create some textures. I was showing different textures. So I was doing a tiger. More colored pencils. I used some markers and watercolor paints. Mixed some watercolor paint with marker, some watercolor for the eyes. And then I just have been creating, and we'll just look quick. If you have some extra paper, or maybe you weren't here last time, it's all about just using different colors, different textures, different patterns. Obviously I'm doing a tiger, so I'm kind of keeping in a family of oranges and yellows and whatnot. But I'm going to get some black, and if I can just find, I can't find a white colored pencil. Just had it too. Alright, well, we'll keep going with the other colors. So it can literally just be like this as a piece of yellow paper. I did some like dark orange stripes, and then I can just add some texture on top of that. And now I have not only a cool stripe pattern, but I have some fur texture on top of that. and it doesn't really matter what direction these go in. You're going to see a collage is a art term for combining different pieces of paper into a new piece of artwork. So I have all of these separate pieces of paper that I'm going to cut out, and then I'm going to make them into a new piece of art. So I actually have a piece of paper that I do my drawings on, and it's got some marks on it that bled through. So I'm actually going to keep those marks because they might add to some of the fun that we create. So when I'm starting, I'm going to start with a large area first, and I'm going to do my tiger head. The fun thing about collage is that you can layer things and add things later. So I'm just going to add part of my tiger head. So I have my tiger head here. I'm going to use just a pencil, and I'm going to sketch just 1/2 of, I'll do maybe a little bit more than half. I'll do like 2/3 of my tiger face. And I'm going to just get another piece. I got my nose ready. Now, as you're collaging, we're going to be gluing on, if you have whatever types of glue you have, if you have glue stick, if you have white glue, doesn't really matter, but we're going to be gluing it on here in layers. So if you are using something like a white, like Elmer's glue, you might want to let it dry in between steps. So I have my 1/2 of my animal head, and again, if you're using other animals, you can feel free to, and you should draw whatever animal you chose and created patterns from. So if you did a snake, use a snake. And I'm going to use the other half of another piece of paper. And I'm just going to continue my tiger. And then I'm going to start cutting this out. And I want to start with the biggest areas first. So I'm going to start in the background first, and then build on top of that. And if this is too much with the paper, cutting out stuff, we'll show you what you can do, and you can just break up and kind of create different textures and patterns within your piece of paper. So we're going to go back to, as I'm cutting some stuff up, we're going to go back to Monday, Wednesday, Friday lives. And I guess I would like some comments. I'm debating just going back to single day projects, not doing projects over the course of a couple days. And I would love some feedback to have you tell me if you liked having a project over a couple days or you don't want that. So feel free in the comments to drop that down. And my glue is dry. So I'm gonna just start gluing down. So I'm gonna work my background. So I'm gonna put my yellow piece down first. I'm gonna put my orange on top of that. And I left some of this without pattern, and that's okay too, because I'm gonna be layering other pieces on top of that. I have some other orange, so I'm gonna cut out some ears for one side, and I kind of like the ability for the contrast in color. If I put two of the same orange papers next to each other, you won't be able to tell the fact that it's different papers. And it's okay that I'm going off the page. So if it goes off the page, that's okay too. So I have this orange. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm going to use this beige color. And I'm gonna just draw out a little ear. And you can draw on the front of your stuff, or if you want to draw on the back so you don't get any marks, that's okay too. And I'm just going to put this down, tuck it under, and you can already see how I'm starting to get this kind of really funky, interesting, different textures, different colors, different patterns to my tiger. And I'm just gonna continue to cut things out. If you are watching this video and maybe you don't have enough papers, or you're like, I really wanna make some more, or I wanna go experiment with some different materials, feel free to, watch the rest, but then we can also, I put these videos up on YouTube, so you can go back to my last video, part 1, and you can look at my demonstrations on how to use all these different materials. We experimented with watercolor, we experimented with colored pencil, we experimented with markers, oil pastels, all sorts of things to just play around with different materials and create different textures and patterns. And here's the interesting thing too with these, the size doesn't really matter. These aren't, going as realistic, so my nose might be a little bit bigger, and that's okay. Now I'm going to continue just to cut things out. So I got my eye. Put my eye down. And there's all different in Clare Young's artwork, she has different shapes that break up into the animal. So I'm going to cut out these stripes and just add them on top of another area. I think I'm going to do it actually. And I like glue stick because it allows me as I'm working to kind of play around and so I'm going to glue that one down. And again, this is just collaging, building up other papers on top of each other. And if you want to, you can cut everything out, and then before you glue anything down, you can experiment. I got this really cool oil pastel texture. I'm going to kind of add that here. And if these look a little odd because of all the different shapes and patterns, that's okay. That's what Clare Young's artwork really looks like. It's just, you know, it looks like the shape of the animal and it has some of the same textures and some of the same colors, but some of the colors are completely off. Put another eye. And I can always go back and add things too. Like I have another stripe. This is like a white stripe on black paper. I'm going to put that on top to kind of hide that seam. Not that I need to, but it looks good. There we go. So now that I have my tiger shapes and patterns and textures, and again, if you haven't had a chance to go look at my original post or my past YouTube video, or past live that's now on YouTube at Jason Dorothy, feel free to do that because you can see how we created all these different textures. And again, feel free to check out our artist, Clare, Clare Youngs, to see her other animal illustrations because I'm doing this in her style so you can really get an idea of what we're going for. And I totally forgot I have these textures too. Again, these are the textures that we use that were created with creating our own stamp, if you will. Using a meat tray and pressing into the meat tray and then just painting on top of the meat tray and using it as a stamp, you get that really cool fur texture. So I'm just going to keep adding these on. I think I'm going to now get at a mouth. I'm going to use a piece of paper that a scrap piece of paper. The fun thing about scrap paper is sometimes that it gives you ideas that you might not have had before because of the shapes. Because I just saw this shape and I was like, it looks like a mouth. So we're going to use this shape for for a mouth. And then I have more textures, so I'm going to cut some of these out and add them on top in other places. And again, feel free to take some creative liberties and have some fun with this. And then I'm going to add some teeth. And I'm just going to make some big fangs to start. Just cutting them out of, and you can draw them out first, or you can just cut some out. And I'm just going to add some fangs. To my tiger. So again, if you're watching this video and you've been along for our past ones, or if you're just joining now, this is a part 2 of another video. I was trying a 2-part video. I'm not really sure if it worked as well for people. If the break was just hard for keeping people and picking them back up from the rest of the project. So my next video on Friday is going to be more one deal, one and done. And I'm thinking about doing something with some magazines. So it'll be a fun kind of creative project. So now I have my tiger, and I'm just going to go back on top with the black marker or a black crayon or whatever it may be. And I'm just going to outline all of these shapes. And I can even add some textures on top with my black marker. And I can add some pattern with my black marker as well. Like, those stripes seemed cool, but I want to make them a little bit more tiger-like. Yes, the mailman is there. I swear the dogs freak out every time at around 11:20 and the mailman is here. And I've been giving my dogs bones and little chews to keep them occupied, but it doesn't always seem to work. So just outlining, creating some other details, like I'm doing little marks inside of the ears. Just outlining everything. And we'll create that big bold line fine with shapes. And I kind of like some of this other stuff on the bottom. I'm going to go inside and add some other details in here. On top of my watercolor, just to make it a little bolder. I'm going to add some more stripes. So there's no right or wrong in this. You can just keep adding, building. I like this texture, but I might go in with a different pen and just outline some of those textures just so they stand out a little bit more. So again, Friday is going to be a one-part, no more two-part for the time being, unless people really liked them. And you just need some magazine pictures, and you'll see why. And I'll make sure I post about it tomorrow. But we're going to do some creative kind of get our brains stretching. Some drawings with some magazines, and a glue stick and a piece of paper. That's all and a pencil. That's all we really need. All right. Maybe I'll add a little bit more fur up here because we got. I think today's going to be a shorter one than normal just because it is the end of a two-part one. But again, we're going to return to our normal format just because that seemed to work. I think this one might have confused people, but that's okay. I'm glad that those of you that are here. And there we have our Clare Young's inspired tiger. So feel free to go back if you catch this and you want to go back and watch the first part. It's on my YouTube at Jason Dorphy. You can follow and subscribe so any new videos you can see. And again, I'll post tomorrow what our plan is for Friday. So thank you everyone for watching and have a wonderful Wednesday.